Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today we are discussing Thanasis Antetokounmpo. Why are we talking about him? Well, a few weeks ago, there was a game which the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Milwaukee Bucks were playing each other, and about halfway through the fourth quarter, Thanasis was getting subbed into the game, and the Minnesota announcers trolled him in kind of a hilarious fashion here. So we'll go ahead and watch this little clip here, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Oops.
The white flag being waved.
Why do you say that, Jim Keith?
Because Thanasis getting ready to come into the game. Thanasis.
Edwards for three. Oh, he goes off glass.
Oh, the Timberwolves fans sitting in the front
row.
All right, so there you have it, guys. The announcers say there that Thanasis is coming into the game, meaning that the white flag is being waved by the Bucks in that game. Now, they're also 100% right in this. There is a term that is meant for this. It's usually meant in the reverse way, where it's like when a winning team puts in like a certain player or a certain group of players, it's, been deemed as like if you ever are on Basketball Reference and you see someone with the nickname Human Victory Cigar, that is why, because they are basically, when they're getting subbed into the game, it's like they're only being subbed in garbage time. And if they're on a good team, they're being subbed into garbage time. It means that, like, hey, we're basically celebrating our victory by having this guy come in. This is obviously the reverse of that here, where they're like, hey, we're not going to win this game. We'll just put in our bench guys that don't play that much, and we'll, give our starters some rest, and we'll move on from here. Now, I want to talk about Thanasis a little bit here. This is kind of a segue to talk about him, because a lot of people point at him, and it's because he is his brother's one of the best players in the world. Kind of look at Thanasis and are just kind of like, why is he in the NBA? Why is he a player in the NBA? Is he the worst player in the NBA? What purpose does he have in the NBA other than being Giannis's brother? Because it seems like for a while, like I don't know how many of his, I think there might have been one other brother. I apologize, I don't know if I remember his name. That might have been on the Lakers for a little bit, but it was kind of like always a rumor that, like, hey, whatever team is signing one of Giannis's brothers, it's like kind of in a way of a recruiting tactic, because Giannis might be like, hey, I'll just go over there. They were nice to my brother, gave him a chance. I want to go and play for that team. I want to talk about this a little bit here too, because I think people underrate the fact this fact and attribute, or attributes, I should say, in basketball specifically, where it's like being on an NBA roster isn't necessarily like, hey, how talented are you? That's not. Now, it's obviously a tremendous part of it, but when you're filling out like a 15-man rotation, sometimes there's some guys on your team that aren't necessarily there because of their basketball ability. We see this stuff all the time. We had Udonis Haslem was, had like what, an 18, 20-year career with the Miami Heat. The last like half of it, he never played. The reason he was on the team was because he was very much loved by the organization, loved by the coaching staff, and loved by his teammates. And with Thanasis, I mean, we have other examples of this too. Like Nick Collison's another one for OKC, who actually got his jersey retired in Oklahoma City for the time he was in Seattle and Oklahoma City for that franchise, where he was on the bench for a while, where it was kind of like, does he ever play? There's guys like this throughout NBA history. The Cavaliers teams with LeBron had them. The Miami Heat teams with LeBron had them a little bit too, where it's like sometimes these veteran guys, now Thanasis isn't necessarily like a hardened veteran that's been in the league 15 years, but these guys that are just, on your team. And kind of the thing with Thanasis being on the Bucks is, if Giannis likes him, he's your most important player. He's one of the top 20 greatest players of all time. And especially, too, if everyone else on the team really likes him and the coaches like him and he's just a good guy to have in the locker room and everyone gets along with each other, then I don't necessarily see a problem with it, because, you kind of need guys that are, just, not role models, but, leaders, guys that, are always giving positive vibes. And here's the thing, too. If Thanasis is on your bench, there's other players on that team that aren't necessarily threatened that he is going to like take their minutes, versus like maybe a young guy that has like some skills, where it's like, oh, I don't know if I like having that other guy on the bench. He's like 20 years old. He wants playing time. But like Thanasis, too, he's completely fine with not getting any playing time. So again, maybe it would be a little better if they had like a young guy on their team that could give them minutes, or, maybe potentially give them minutes. But again, if Thanasis is a good role player on the team, everybody on the team loves him. I think that's the more important part here too. If it's not just like Giannis and Thanasis in a corner and they eat lunch together every day and everyone else is kind of like, oh, why is Thanasis here? If that's the case, then yeah, there's a problem here. But if everybody on the team likes him, which I assume if he's been on the team this many years, that's the case. I don't necessarily see a problem with it. And this is a thing that's been happening in sports for decades, guys, where like I have a Mickey Mantle book behind me. There was a time where like the Yankees were like signing Mickey Mantle's brothers to like their minor league teams. Were they doing that as like kind of like a, hey, you know, we can't necessarily pay you anymore, Mickey, but we're going to help out your family a little bit here. Or was it a thing like where it's like, hey, because I think that might have been Giannis's brothers being in the league at the first point. It's like, hey, this Giannis guy is pretty good. Like, let's see if his brothers have anything. Let's see if there's any spark to them. Now, again, they weren't necessarily the best basketball players, as we pointed out with Thanasis several times, but there has been traditions of guys just being on teams that aren't there just because of their strict basketball ability or their strict playing ability. Sometimes it's about personalities, relationships, and especially in basketball, you want everyone to get along. You want good chemistry guys in a locker room because there's a lot of things that can go up and go down. You know, these playoff series can get really intense. You need guys, you know, that are, you know, very much, you know, have good vibes. And Thanasis seems like he's a guy that has good vibes. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it. But yeah, that's kind of my explanation of why I think Thanasis is on the Bucks and still in the NBA. So there you have it, guys. Thank you guys very much for watching this episode. If you like this content, please hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit that like button. We're starting, football's over, so we're basically switching over to mostly basketball videos here for the you know, the near future, the next few months. So thank you very much for watching. If any other news comes up, you know, feel free to check out the Sports Detective podcast channel too. You know, maybe discover a few other videos that you like. And again, thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.